Cuba is facing renewed threats from Washington. US President Trump is pushing the Cuban government to the breaking point now.
The communist establishment at the heart of the Caribbean has been a point of frustration for Washington for the last 6 decades. And once again, the U.S. is gradually raising the heat on Cuba. Donald Trump has issued an ultimatum, and I'm quoting here, "Cuba must make a deal before it is too late." Now, the ultimatum does not have any deadline, and it also lacks a clear outline about what type of deal Trump wants from Havana.
Earlier, the U.S. president reposted a message that jokingly suggested that U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who's the child of Cuban immigrants, could also become the president of Cuba.
Now, threats from Washington have drawn an angry retort from Havana. President Miguel Díaz-Canel has said that no one would tell his country what to do. Díaz-Canel added that Cuba is ready to defend the homeland to the last drop of blood.
The renewed tensions come after the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. According to Trump, Maduro provided Cuba with oil, while Cuba gave him manpower. Trump says Maduro's capture has severed the link between Caracas and Havana, with the U.S. exercising an oil blockade over Venezuela. Trump believes that Maduro's ouster leaves Cuba ready to fall.
Now, the fresh tensions between Washington and Havana revive memories of an old crisis. The origin of this tumultuous relationship dates back to the 1960s. Now, that was when communist revolutionaries Fidel Castro and Che Guevara overthrew dictator Fulgencio Batista in Cuba and established a communist government. And this was a time when a war of ideological dominance was underway between the United States and Soviet Union.
Cuba's proximity to the U.S. left Washington worried, and it led to a covert U.S. operation in 1961. Under Operation Bay of Pigs, U.S.-backed Cuban exiles attempted to overthrow Fidel Castro, but the operation resulted in a humiliating defeat for the Americans.
Well, a year later came the infamous Cuban Missile Crisis. The U.S. imposed a naval blockade on Cuba under John F. Kennedy. And this was when Cuba became the battleground of a superpower showdown, and the world came ever closer to a full-blown nuclear war. The crisis ended after the U.S. promised not to invade Cuba in return for the withdrawal of Soviet nuclear missiles from the island nation.
Since then, both the U.S. and Cuba have continued to have hostile relations. A Cold War-era U.S. trade embargo continues to rattle Cuba's economy. With Maduro gone, Havana is once again in Washington's crosshairs, marking the rebirth of a half-a-century-old crisis. More than that, actually.